Welcome back to the Amatoria podcast. I'm Justin Dong, and I'm here with my co-host Marvin Allen. Today we have a very special guest joining us from the Amorati, from Belgium, and he's been in Amorati for 2 years, and I'd like him to introduce himself. He's the legendary. We were in Brazil together 1 year ago, and we were at dinner, and I remember his default instinct, many of you listening, when you see a girl, you might have sort of hesitation. You might be worried. Should I go? Should I not go? Maybe she wants to, maybe she won't. This guy, his default programmed response, because he's very into psychology, is to go every single time and count on it like clockwork. So, Matthew, who are you? What's your story, man? Welcome to the podcast.
That it sounds like I'm some like hypnotized machine, you know. But yeah, it's true. I did teach myself that because I think it's a pity not to at least give a woman that you like the opportunity of meeting you. So, uh, but as for myself, like I'm a psychology student, so I've had this, I would say, like 10-year long journey into um yeah, understanding. It sounds cliche, like personal development, but it's you know just everything you can imagine. And I think the thing that has been my main motivator has been to be good with women, for sure. So that's kind of like what drives me in life. So yeah.
Cool, man. So, what's your story? Like, where did you start with women? Where are you now? What's on your edge? What's your dating hero's journey, as we like to explore on this podcast?
Well, um, I was very bad with women, you know. I was just so desperate and needy. And not that long ago, I would say probably like, I guess like the peak of it was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the point where I decided like, I'm gonna start really ramping up my uh, transformative process, or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
um, was when I started to live alone at 19. Because I just noticed that I was different than other people. Like I was very scared to act socially, to do anything, and it wasn't just with women, just in general.
Right.
Um, there was some kind of, you know, s- some things I learned from growing up that needed to be shed. And so, yeah, at that point, I did go through a lot of pain because, um, like you're 19 years old, you don't know anything, and all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
kind of on your own, trying to trying to fix yourself, I'd say. It was definitely fixing it, you know. It wasn't just a few adjustments.
Right.
Well, and in some sense, it's more of a process of self-acceptance than really changing things, but that's kind of another conversation. Um, but yeah, I just started to try everything. I just, habit stacking, eating super healthy, exercising, just looking people in the eye, um, reading up on psychology, psychedelics as well. That has definitely helped me a lot. I noticed
Yeah.
that a lot of the changes I wanted to make really dropped in my body once I started to do psychedelics. Um, it's, yeah, for sure. Like I really noticed an enormous shift in myself. But of course, it's not medical advice. Everybody does, you know, your own research. Um,
Disclaimer.
yeah, disclaimer. Um, and but so throughout this period, I'd say like up until like 22, 23, I'm 28 now. I I got to the point where I improved myself and had taken care of myself on many different levels. But at the same time, I was still super shy to talk to girls. There was still a lot of fear there, and a lot of just beliefs that weren't serving me. And so at a certain point, I joined an online course. which is called it's still called that, but it's called the Lifestyle Design Academy. And through
Yeah.
that course, I met a whole bunch of super interesting people. One of which was a guy that just put me on a mic, and he was like, you know, go for it, go talk to girls, and I'm here. And
Throwing you into the deep end of the pool.
yeah, man. And um, up until that point, I always thought like, no, girls, they're not gonna like that. That's too intrusive. That's I shouldn't be doing that. Like they'll know that I actually like them, and
Yeah.
I might be sexually attracted to them as well. They'll
And
how shit they'll know. Um,
that's funny. And if I may interject here really quick, Matthew, you were rejecting yourself on their behalf. I relate to that. Maybe you raised that as well, Marvin. Just deciding for yourself that the girl wouldn't be interested or wouldn't want to be talked to without going and finding out, right? Please continue, Matthew.
yeah, 100%. Like I had been in so many situations where like girls were like internally they wouldn't show it that much, but they were begging me to make some kind of move and really progress things. So I have a lot of those like super awkward stories for
Yeah.
myself, which in some way I cherish.
Yes.
Um, and so I got put on a microphone for 2 hours, and um, I mean it took like 20 minutes to get comfortable with it. And I think the biggest, like, that was a surprise. And the biggest surprise was that women absolutely loved this. They were happy to meet somebody, and it was done in a respectful way.
Mhm.
You say something like, excuse me, well, you look beautiful, or whatever you think she is, something
Yeah.
special you notice, and you just start talking, and it's such a it's such a beautiful and pure thing to do. Um, And yeah, that really rocked my world. Like I could do it. I was quite okay with that. It was just, how to have
Yeah.
a normal conversation basically. There's nuances to it, of course, but that's about it. And you get desensitized to that anxiety like super quick. It never
Uh,
really goes away completely, but yeah. So I think that was the real turning point. That's when I knew like, okay, um I can get this thing handled, and yeah,
And just to go back, I wanted to highlight something you said because you talked a lot about painful experiences you had when you were starting out. Would you say that the beginning of your journey was mainly driven by that kind of pain and by those experiences, and by feeling like you're not the man, the person you want to be in life, or do you think it was more the desire to become something more? Do you think it was more out of pain or out of the desire to be something else? Maybe both.
that's a really great question. Um, I think I think now my motivation is the desire to be something else mostly, because I'm still evolving. And but in the past, definitely it was the pain. Just have this dread and neediness, and like this soul longing for some girl to like you. I don't know how to explain it, but it's so real, and it's so powerful. And so if that's like top of mind, like if that's I, I mean, I could still function normally. It was like I'm putting
yeah.
into an extreme spotlight, but it was still very real, and it was clear that this was something I needed to get a handle on for sure. Yeah.
Something came up when you were talking, Matthew, and that is, well, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action in spite of the fear. That's the difference between someone that goes towards what they want and stays where they are, right? And you remind me, and I'm so happy that you're on today. It's Matthew's birthday, by the way, guys.
Hey,
So happy birthday, Matthew.
thank you.
And but I'd like us to explore this idea of, but to us on this podcast and in Amorati in general, a birthday is just a birthday. It's another day in a life that you already love living. So we were talking about this a bit before we came on the podcast. But when every day is filled with things you love, you think to yourself, wow, there's nowhere else I'd rather be in the world than a birthday. It's just another day. If you guys want to speak on this a little bit, we were talking about this a little bit before the call.
Yeah, go for it, Matthew. Just talk about
it. Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know. Well, Justin, you're younger than me, but I noticed at some point, like I think it was at 25, where every birthday it just felt like not really that much of a celebration, but more like shit. There's a bit of life gone, um, and it definitely always had this. Well, the last few years, I really felt this urgency in life. I'd say that I didn't have before. Um, and I would say like I am on the track that I want to be on, but there's always this feeling like things need to speed up. I'm getting older, things like more things need to happen, but I guess in some way that's also like a rabbit hole to get stuck into, because like some things you just have to go through, and
Yeah.
yeah, if you show up and do your best every day, and that's the process you're following, that's in some way the best you can do. So yeah, how do you
I
guys
heard in there.
think about this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it even relates to in extreme case, the fear of dying or death. Because I mean, a birthday is also a reminder that you're 1 year closer to potentially dying, and to to put it that way. And if you're on this path, like you just said, you're doing the things you want to be doing, and you're on a journey to becoming the person you want to be, having the experiences you want to have, then I've noticed with myself, I also become more comfortable with death. And the fear of death is not something horrible in the future, but it's something that is certainly inevitable, but it's not something that I have to fear because I am on the journey of living the life I want to live. And then you become more comfortable with the fact that you may die at some point. And, maybe tomorrow, and maybe in 10, and maybe in 100 years. But
wow, Marvin.
yeah, when you're on the path.
I hear you, and I think of Matthew's story in Brazil, hanging off the side of the car. I would love you if you told that story here, Matthew. And I'll give a quick preface. So we were in Rio. It was I don't know, it was a weekend. It must have been a Friday night or Saturday night. And we had gone to this part known as Lapa. Lapa, and many guys listening to this probably have been to Rio, but if you haven't been, Lapa is, let's say you'll meet more homegrown, original, local girls there. The downside is that it's closer to the favela, and it's dangerous. Higher risk, higher reward, shall we say. And that's how we were traveling a bit. But I remember you, Marvin, and was it Eric with you guys? Was Jamie there? I don't remember.
It was Eric.
You guys went back to Ipanema Beach, the famous Ipanema, the listeners should know. And then, oh God, you tell the story, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some guy getting like severely beaten, and his head was like stomped in on a curb in Lapa. So I think, and just the craziness of it, the people there, like it was carnival. So, and every taxi driver told us, like, are you sure you want to go to Lapa? Do you have a guide?
You guys don't look like you belong there.
Yeah. Your gringos going to Lapa? What the fuck? And yeah, so I think it was my idea to leave and go to Ipanema, and I was hyping it up. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be, there's gonna be so many people there. It's gonna be amazing. It's carnival.
It was like 1 a.m.
So
1 a.m. at night.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 a.m. And so we took a taxi to go there, and it was empty. There was nobody. And like 4 hours ago, there were probably like 10,000 people on the beach, something like that, because there was an enormous carnival party.
Loco.
Yeah. And so we were there. We were the last gringos in town, and like the place where you might get stolen, you might get robbed.
Ripe
So
for
at
robbery.
at a certain point, there was a taxi that just stopped next to us, and there were two Brazilian women that came out, and you know
Fake taxi.
they instantly loved us. They were like, "We're so drunk, we want to dance."
Yeah.
And by that time, we had become Brazilian gentlemen, so we didn't want to, just reject them and having a dance with them for sure.
Yes.
So, but it did seem like it seemed so shady. Uh, Maybe just looking back
Shady.
at it. And at a certain point, I think it was Eric that was shouting to me like, "Hey, Matthew, Matthew, they're stealing your phone." And I was touching my pocket. I was like, "No, my phone is gone." And I had been guarding my phone with my life since I arrived there because everybody
Yeah.
told me
Yeah.
your phone is gonna get stolen. And so, my phone was gone, and those two girls, they were jumping in the car quickly. They tried to get us in the car, so you can see how they might have a gun or whatever,
How far could that have gone?
And yeah, and so the front door was still closing. So I ran after the car. I put my leg in between the front door, and I just grabbed the door, and the car started to drive. So hanging on the door while the car was speeding up like max speed, just you know,
40, 50 miles an hour. Or however
wasn't
much it
that
was.
quick, but it felt, if you're hanging on the door, it just feels like
Yeah.
you're on a highway. Uh, and so I was having a fight with the passengers to while I was
Yeah.
hanging on the door to get my phone
Yeah.
back. Which like at a certain point they did give it back. They stopped the car just abruptly. Like I could hear the door just cracking from the force of me like just being pushed forward. And I gave my phone back and I just slammed the door. I was like, I'm out of here. Still got my phone. And then I did feel invincible. Like nobody's gonna get this phone. It's been proven.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
There's
Yeah,
a sense of gravity.
I'll go ahead.
Let me just give my perspective because I saw it from from the other side of the street.
You were there, Marvin.
I was there, and so I remember Eric walking away, and Eric's like, "Nah, man, they're trying to get my phone." Eric's like, so walking away. I'm like right behind him, and then I hear the car going, and I like turn around, and just see the car like speeding down the fucking street, and Matthew like hanging on the side of the fucking door.
On the outside of the car.
What the fuck? I'm like, shit, we've lost Matthew. Like, they've taken Matthew. I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna see this guy again, And then like somehow they stop at the end of the street, and Matthew gets off and walks back with his phone in his hand, and we're like, what the fuck just happened? And then we just try to get the fuck out of there as soon as possible, get an Uber back home. But
Yeah, I remember. Then we were like, we need to get it back home. This is crazy.
yeah, well,
Let's get back. Yeah, but I mean, we watch like I can imagine like seeing that with all the movies you've watched in your life. Like that's usually the end of things. That's how it ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been all over. Yeah.
Like the driver was a guy, and I think like the fact that they tried to get me into the car, I thought about this like he must have had a gun or something to
Yeah.
so
I didn't know that.
I don't know why he didn't shoot
I didn't
me,
know
but
they were going to try to get you into the car. That they were just going to get your
yeah,
phone and leave.
they like from the very beginning they tried to, at me at least, I know. Maybe
really?
you didn't hear it, but they tried to get
No.
us in, yeah.
Oh,
Which
no, I
is
didn't hear
like it shows
That is sketchy.
they'll do
Yeah.
something that you'll just have to behave and do what they say.
You weren't going back to Belgium in psychology school after that.
Just get rid of my kidney in Brazil,
involuntary kidney
Man,
donation.
this is seriously, farming your body organs. Who knows? This reminds me because, oh man, of just the feeling of us all being down there. on a collective quest or a mission of our initiation, you could say. Each day had so many stories in it. And I think of timelines. Let's say most guys go to their jobs 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, come home tired. Whether if they have a girl there. Then they go out maybe for 2 hours, 3 hours on Saturday, Friday night. And each day was packed 12 to 16 hours of just us talking to women, talking to each other about women, thinking about the process. And I think, how much progress did we make? Matthew, you were there for 2 weeks. Marva and I were there for longer. In that compressed period of time of lived experience and new stories like this crazy one that we can recall so vividly, because there's a form of life and death, you hanging off the side of the car. But it's a sort of death, like we talked about on the previous episode, Marvin, if you don't cast everything aside and go pursue that adventure of your life and make these kind of stories. Because now, Matthew, do you have any nervousness talking to a girl knowing you almost died in Brazil? It's like, I already experienced that. What is this? Another, it's just a girl.
Well, I'm not sure if like the car chase really helped with meeting girls. But it's definitely
Sure.
something I like to talk about as like a fun story,
Yeah,
100%.
great.
But yeah, Brazil. I mean, it was like, if I can expand just on, because Marvin is there right now, and I just want to expand on the differences between that culture and Western culture, at least from my perspective. I would say like Western European and US, Canada, like those countries as well.
Yeah,
It's just a completely different world. It's To me, it's you arrive there and like gradually, quite quickly actually, like there's this heaviness that falls from your shoulders. And I listened to the previous podcast with Marvin, and I think like if you're interested in that, like he explained his experience there as well. Um, but for me as well, it's like you you're reclaiming parts of yourself, like these parts that you may have felt when you were a little boy, you know, just this playfulness, this directness of what you want and who you are, and just there's yeah, and it's very physical. It's which I think is it creates a very powerful connection with people, because you can notice this. Like if nobody touched you in a certain day, and then you have like a friend is just like touching your shoulder, like, hey, let's go over there or whatever. It has an impact. You're like, whoa, you know, what this? This is I like that,
yeah,
for sure. And over there, it's all the time. It's you're connecting on with the body, and well, mostly with the body, I'd say, and then afterwards
yeah,
there's a lot of talking. Um, but it just feels like the natural order of things, even though like it's just a different culture, and I'm not saying like Western European culture is bad or dysfunctional or whatever. Uh, but for me, it does make me feel really alive. Um, and I felt it in most warmer countries, with Brazil being like the pinnacle of that, for sure. Uh, yeah. If any of you are thinking about going there, I would highly recommend it. It's just an immersive experience of, you know, just pure bliss. It's the only way I
yeah.
can
Well, that's
describe it.
one way. One way to describe it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd be curious to hear how you guys experience that as well.
Yeah, we talked about it last time a little bit,
We talked about extensively. Yeah.
extensively even. Yeah. Um,
But if I can tie some threads together,
sure.
it's just we come from cultures where you're not taught to have a good relationship with your body, not even in a body shaming, girls feel insecure about their body kind of way. It's just you have no idea, because society is so polite. It's more important to keep others around you happy than to prioritize your own personal happiness. I'm Asian American. Marvin's from Germany. You're from Belgium, Matthew. It's the same in the Western dating world, and I think that evolves our discussion to masculine edge. They say man only likes two things. He likes danger and he likes play. That's what makes him feel truly alive. So a dangerous woman is like pure bliss, as you said, Matthew,
I
to
didn't say
a
that.
woman.
I didn't say dangerous woman is pure bliss.
Well, wait, Matthew's
Yep.
funny, guys. You guys listening, Matthew is funny because, a nice, healthy, sweet. Oh, girl, no, that's so boring. Give me some drama. Give me some fight. Matthew, can you speak to that? And maybe attraction patterns in general from a more psychology perspective, because you're much better at this. This is what you study.
Well, yeah, it's a very curious thing, right? I grew up in and I won't tell the whole story, but I'll just link it to now. But I grew up in a house where with a lot of tension, just you know, quite a lot of troubles in the house, even though my parents like they did their best and I got like in many ways the best care you can get. Um, at the same time, I just got very comfortable with um, tension of other people, you know, and I know how to diffuse it. I know how to, I became a very funny person and very accommodating.
Yeah,
Um, and like that, I thought about this, but it's like if you have a girl that's very intense, um, she's gonna like she, because you might be diffusing a lot of tension. Like she's gonna break through that and she's gonna make you feel something. That's how I thought about. I don't know if that's true, but I think there's something to it. And because then you're actually feeling something and she's breaking through that um in some way like emotional barrier. Um like that becomes something that is in some ways really attractive because she's opening up. She's kind of like hammering at to break through a certain wall. And then you start feeling all those things. And yeah, I think there might be some of that going on, but I'm quite aware of those patterns, and I think it's very interesting for everybody to just also become aware of like which patterns which patterns happen, and but at the same time not to like define yourself with that because I've had plenty of really good experiences. I wouldn't say like it's that much of a pattern that I'd meet girls that would be like that intense. Um, but yeah, it's definitely something that's interesting to investigate for yourself. Because imagine you don't notice this and that you get stuck in relationships with somebody that's really like um, crushing your soul in many ways. Because that's what can really happen, you know. And it goes both ways. Like men can do it to women, women can do it to men. And if you're not aware of that, and you're gonna lose your identity, and it's gonna be very difficult to break out of that. So I think everybody goes through these experiences. They're really good learning moments. Like you might go through some pain, but I think I wouldn't recommend it. But in some ways, it's kind of worth it to go through it. But it, it's just if you're not ready to handle that, you'll have to go through it, or just have to stay at home and do nothing, just watch TV. So yeah,
watch your life go by.
yeah,
That's very funny because you and Marvin, I would love your take on this because I feel like you can speak to this very well. Oftentimes, your setting, the people you surround yourself with, the culture, your family, these people, everyone's trying their best. But sometimes that gets misconstrued and you become someone that you're not, is kind of what you're saying, right, Matthew? Because to try to honor those commitments, there's this phrase in Spanish, mejor solo que con tontos. Better to be alone than to be with fools, to be with the wrong people, And I think if we can put that in the Amorati terms, to go out and find someone and a group of people that get you, that know your struggle, that have been through the similar things, is priceless because it doesn't exist in society. Last time, and Marvin, I handed off to you after this, is we talked about there's no good message for men in traditional means. The man has to go search for himself and carve out his own meaning, and it'll look like different. We each come from different backgrounds and patterns and family story. You can say nature versus nurture, but all that matters is how we move forward, right? People have had shitty childhoods in all of history. There was unknown diseases. Mommy got raped, sister got kidnapped, daddy went off to war and died. And that happened in all of history, so we're not unique, It's how you choose to move forward. What do you think about that, Marvin?
I think it's huge. I mean, the community aspect, I think that's where really the biggest transformations happen. In my life, like when I went to Bucharest those 2 times, where when I got inspired to live a different life and actually made it
Yes.
happen, because you can sit at home and think and read and watch videos, and think like, oh man, that would be great, it'd be great to go there and meet these girls and have all these adventures and all that stuff, but you might never do it if you don't have the support or the feeling that you belong to a community that's supportive and that supports you in living a greater life. And Matthew also spoke to that, like his biggest change occurred when he met the other guys, from the academy. And he put you out there and into the world and said, hey, go talk to these girls, go do this and this and this. And that's profoundly powerful, to find the right people that you can connect with and go on this journey together with, and share experiences, talk around the fireplace, so to speak, with your brothers about your adventures and the stories you have, and help each other grow and connect throughout the journey that we're all on. It's like an individual, you're on an individual path, but you're kind of walking or running next to each other and sharing stories.
And there's an accountability aspect to that. And this is who you told me you wanted to be. And if I'm not deviating, I'm hesitating, if you can kindly remind me who I committed that I was going to be, there's a accountability and from understanding. I'm curious if you'll have a psychology perspective on this, Matthew, the importance of community and belonging and feeling like you're a part of something.
Well, it's a very big topic, right? And there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, some theory, I don't know the exact person that invented
Study
this
harder,
theory.
Matthew.
I forgot it. Sorry?
Study harder.
Yeah. But I think it's like in system therapy, they say, somebody says that you're constantly checking your identity with other people. You're constantly like checking in, like, am I this person? And you can hear people sometimes like explaining something 4 or 5, like even 10 times the same thing. And I'm not sure if this is true, but there's like, I think it's because they explain it again because they haven't been really heard. Like you didn't really listen to them, and you didn't give them like a certain confirmation of like, yeah, I understand you're going through this, and it's okay, and if they might make statements about who they are, like for example, I'm 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 not an anxious person, or I'm not depressed, or I'm a joyful person, or whatever. And if the other person doesn't confirm that, it creates like a friction within yourself. And so if you have people that are, and we can feel that if you have people aligned with the same values, the same, and you want some diversity, of course, but there's like a shared vision, um, and you know what you want to be, how you want to show up, then like all the identities in the group are being carefully calibrated, and you're getting constant confirmation, like, no, you're not dreaming about who you are or who you want to become, what your dreams are. It's true, it's real. And I think that's one very powerful mechanism of how this stuff works. But this is all very, very meta. So I think just in general, like
Let
from my experience, I've just noticed that it's super powerful to have good people around you. So, Marvin?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because we talk about this a lot on our calls too. Why do you think it is that men in Belgium and Germany and whatever other country, why is it so hard to find these men in your local community? Why do we have to travel to Bucharest, to Romania? Why do you have to go to Brazil and connect remotely with these communities in order to find the right people? Shouldn't it be easier? Why aren't there people? Why aren't there communities locally there? Why is it so hard to find this connection nowadays, do you think?
That's that's a good question. Um, I think if you'd go to Brazil, you might find more of those people. Is that correct, Would you say that as well, Marvin, or no? Or you never met a Brazilian guy?
He's not in Brazil for the guys.
It's like, wait.
But
um
like the point I'm kind of trying to make, and I don't know if it's necessarily a point that needs to be made because I don't know if it just explains everything, but um, I think like it's the culture that's gonna shape the people in it. And well, maybe like Marvin, you made a beautiful piece of art. Maybe you can use that to explain it, like, if you can get it,
you wanna have a look
because
at.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Marvin made this and he posted it on Instagram, and um,
Also, Matthew, will you describe it for people that are listening and can't see the video?
yeah. So the picture, it's a picture of like these like circular spirals, and in the middle there's some kind of vague like a web, like a spider's web, and there's an eye in the spider's web, as well as the shape of a woman that doesn't have any arms, and the woman is shouting. And so when I saw this, what it represented to me, like, or at least what I thought was that the eye could be the eye in the middle in the web. Um, it can represent like this internalized voice of judgment, some, the not necessarily judgment, but like the culture that's keeping you inside the net, inside the web. So, and then when you're trying to leave, you can see there's like these circular, it's difficult for a Belgian to say this word, spirals that go back into the web. So you could interpret that as when you're trying to leave the web, your mind just spirals into the same web. And so this woman in the middle, she doesn't have any arms. She cannot um, she cannot reach out to people, which I think is very fitting for Belgium and Germany. I don't know about that many other countries because I haven't lived in them, but for sure those countries. So this woman, she cannot grab a hold of people, and she's shouting because she's missing somebody. There's a loneliness there, and if you look carefully at the picture, like there's this triangle that comes up, and it looks like the shouting, but it's at the same time it's part of the web. So because she's internalized all these IDs, she's creating this her own web where she's stuck in. And so it's a very pessimistic painting you made, Marvin, of it just getting stuck into like cultural norms. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I did not think about all these things when I made it, but I like your interpretation. Profound.
but I think it's very fitting, um, because like I'd say for Belgium, we had two world wars here. We have a history of Christianity, which kind of repressed sexuality quite a bit, actually. Just a Victorian era influence that's probably also ingrained in the culture, and just intergenerational trauma of a war. I think you shouldn't really underestimate that as well, because I can relate like a lot of um, you know things in my family to what happened in the Second World War, and like maybe like those people, if they would still be alive, they would say like it was the First World War. They had, if they thought about it. So
Oh, because you
in
had,
that
right,
sense,
before that, sorry to interrupt. You had like the golden 20s and you had Paris, and you had there were hotspots of like artists and creatives and communities and people actually sharing ideas and doing things. And then, as you said, these two wars happened. But yeah, sorry, go on.
no, yeah, for sure. I think that this disrupts the fabric of the culture, and like culture in general, it's such an elusive thing. Like what is it, Try to define that. It's just everybody's preconceived notions about everybody else and how things should work, and certain implicit rules you just follow. And if you try to break out of it, like you don't necessarily get rewarded that much for it. If like if you stray away too far, um, you'll get put back in your place quite often, I've noticed, because just every time I go to a warmer culture, I come back and I have this extra energy, you know. I wanna smile to people if I'm in the shop, like I start talking, and there's this vibrant energy, but it doesn't get rewarded. It's like, can't put it in like conditioning terms, like the behavior just dies down because there's no more reward. And I think like those are some main principles, like how everybody's shaped. So eventually, I do think like if you wanna really um, really become a different person, and if it's too different from your culture, you just have to move because you'll just constantly be going against the wind, I think. But I'm just one guy trying to figure this out, so might have a different experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're describing, Matthew, is being a walking zombie before you've died, dying before you're dead on the inside, which Marvin, you said happens if you put your dreams and your ambitions off for too long and don't chase it. It just goes away forever. And I think there's this idea of a sunk cost fallacy. You think, oh, okay, well, I'm already 30 years old. I'm already 40 years old. I'm already so. That means it's too late for me to start. But everyone's the same old because who knows when it's all over. And if you look back and you have no good memories, and I think, man, each one of the experiences that we shared is an incredible memory that on your deathbed, hey, remember when Matthew almost died in the pursuit, of greatness? And not everyone has that. And I wanted to bring this up in the context of this of death and rebirth, like you talked about with cultures, right? Them dying and rebranding and evolving with wars and as society evolves. But at a more personal level, is as man searches for his personal transformation, his life gains meaning as he goes in the pursuit of that, in the pursuit of a life well lived. Zan talks about it, living your life as a piece of art. And I think how much time do people invest in their jobs, their careers, but not in themselves? And I'm curious what you think about that, about how you have to kill your old self to become who you have always wanted to be. That idea.
Well, it's tricky, right? Because like how much of yourself is dysfunctional or is not serving you well? Um,
Wow. Yeah.
uh, I don't think like I think it's good to make distinctions in that because like I've met guys that with women they would, and this is more of a specific example, but with women they became a different person because they just threw away everything, uh, you know, and then
In a
I was
bad
like,
way or in a good way.
yeah, just now they're like this suave, seducer
Nice.
guy, and just like, man, you're a cool guy. Just show up like that. Um, but in terms of purpose, hmm, I don't know. There's a lot of people that, like in Belgium, I mean, I guess most people are happy here. Uh, but I also think, and just everywhere in the world, people can get stuck into living the same day every day, which to me seems like a real pity. Like you already had that day. Why live it again? You know? Yeah, we can still enjoy those things, but at a certain point, like, why would you live the same day like thousands of times in a row? What about mixing things up and creating some novelty and exploring different cultures and making new friends, new hobbies? Um, like I don't, it's probably not a good idea for everybody to just throw away everything and start a completely new life. That might be the thing that will best serve you. It's possible. Um, but at the same time, like I think just in daily life you can create some novelty. But I'm starting to sound like a guru. I'm not, just sharing my thoughts. But yeah,
I think it's interesting
Marvin,
what like
what?
yeah, it's interesting what you just said to build upon it. Uh, does it have to be a radical change? Do you have to kill, as Justin put it, do you have to kill your old self to become someone new? Or can you implement little changes throughout your daily life that lead you a bit closer and closer to where you want to be? And I think it's a personal style thing as well. Like some people hear the call and they're ready to give it all up and go into the winds, get rid of their apartment, their friends, their family, and leave and go into the world. And some other people like me, I did it more step by step. First went to travel to Bucharest, then went to Argentina for a month, then came back, then eventually left my apartment. And now traveling more and more full time, but it's I think it's more a question of personal style, so to speak. Um, and I'm also curious to hear what your thoughts are now because you're still studying, so you kind of have to, if you're not in Brazil like last year, you kind of have to find ways to implement these little adventures in your daily life, right? So how do you find good ways to do that now that you're still in Belgium and you're still a student?
Well, that's a very good question. What it's a question I'm asking myself every day. How do I do? Um, I'd say, yeah. So I'm studying psychology, and I'll be done in about a year and a half. And it is quite a tiresome life. There's not that much free time because I'm also working quite a bit and studying at the same time. Um, I do take like vacations for a month and go travel and have wild adventures. And also, I have quite a good network here in Belgium of um, guys with, Sana and Rafael. So we're often going on adventures for sure. Um, I would say like this part of my life, it is a bit of a lonely chapter as well. Not that I don't have the right friends around me, but I'm definitely like um, building something up that is only really gonna come to fruition in like a year and a half. Um, so in that sense, yeah, I'm a bit different, I guess, than what Justin likes. Justin just wants me to quit studying
I know
I'm
and
a
what
bit
travel
I
the
know
extreme.
what
world.
he wants to say. I know what he wants to say. Go for it,
Yeah,
Justin.
I'm not going to say it, but Matthew's heard it over and over. Well, Matthew, I would love if you spoke on the importance of, before you went to Bucharest, connecting with your Amorati brothers in Belgium, the Belgian boys, I like to call them. You, Rafa, Sana, and Jeroen before he disappeared with one girl forever. What has that been like, and what's the importance of that in your development? To find, even before you travel the world, to in your local town, to find those two, three, four rare guys that get you. at this level. How was that? How did that shape your development and journey to connect with those guys?
Man, yeah, I think they're the biggest blessing I've had in my life. Like seriously.
Incredible.
I think it's if you would ask them, well, don't compare like don't let them get on the podcast and they're like, yeah, Matthew, just
We'll
a
ask
joke.
Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew's all right.
Whatever. He's all right. Just
Yeah.
hangs around, he just says some
Yeah.
stupid jokes. Now, for sure, they're a bit older than me as well, so you're kind of getting on that train of older guys, just knowing way more than you. So that it's very powerful. And I remember James Marshall, who we all know. He told me like that's the guy that I follow the course from,
Yeah.
and we were
James.
all together in Bucharest. James was there as well, and he told it to me like, "You're fucking blessed, man, with these two guys with you." And it's true. It's true. They always have your back. I always have their back. Um, you just, you know, you have people where you can share everything, which I think I had. I thought I had those people, but I didn't really. Because there's just way more stuff that comes up when there's shared understanding, a shared language of things, and it's super powerful. It's yeah, it's fantastic. And there's always some accountability as well. Um, there we're all kind of like helping to steer each other's ship, so to speak, with a clear vision in mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, those guys definitely friends for life, so that's super powerful. Yeah.
Dude, how many guys don't even have one true friend? Not to mention four, five, hundreds in countries all across the world where you can call up, hey, can I stay? I'm here, and give you a place to stay and show you around in the Amorati network. You guys don't have one true friend. Yeah, that is the biggest blessing. They say it's not about the destination, it's about the company, right? Who you go through this life with. Because you're at the end of your life. You look at your friend who's old and wrinkled. Remember when we banged some girls? Remember when we were so desperately trying so hard to figure it out, only for it to turn out to be so simple? And Marvin, will you speak to this? The more you go along, the easier it gets. Or perhaps the more simple you realize it is. At the start you think you need to create externally, but then you realize once you fix your internal world, your external world is just a reflection of how you feel about yourself at the end of the day. If you'd like to speak on that a bit. If not, I
Yeah,
can move on further.
I would put it that way. Like, I think in my 20s, let's say it that way. I think in my 20s, I thought it was about putting on more and more layers onto myself to make myself look better, appear better. And in
Yeah.
the last few years, I've realized that it's more about shedding more and more layers of myself, of social conditioning, and to get to kind of a core essence of who I am and of that true authentic desire that is within me. And then it becomes just about finding the right way of expressing that in all areas of life. So that's the way I would describe it. Maybe Matthew has a similar take on that.
Yeah, yeah. I often have this feeling that I'm kind of like returning to some childish state, but like a
Thinking that.
a very informed child, if that makes sense. Because there's kind of like this innocence and spontaneity in a child that there's a real truth to that. Um, and like depending on how this child grew up, there's gonna be a lot of self-acceptance. Of course, you have like a 7-year-old child, I think, that's gonna be like gonna think everything's like he's so good at everything. So I don't necessarily mean that. But I think there's something to that. And what I've noticed in myself is that um, Well, I'll explain it this way. Um, some time ago, I read a chapter in a book that was about samurai, and it explained how they would go through this rigorous, however many years of training, and then at the end of the training, the last stage, which was, and I don't know if this is exactly true, but just follow the story. But the last
Spitballing.
stage was to shed all the techniques, shed all the everything had to go, and you had to completely be able to completely sink into your body and just operate from the senses because and it was assumed that everything you learned it was stored somewhere when you needed it. Uh, but in order to like on the battlefields, in order to be able to respond intuitively to whatever was going on, you couldn't be caught up in, you know, what was this? Is my sword sharpened well enough, or
Mm.
like do I do like this, or maybe a bit more like that, or all that has to go, and you get into a certain flow, and that was apparently like the most difficult stage. Um, and I've I've done quite a lot of meditation on this because I think it's an interesting idea. Like, which kind of energy do you want to be able to access every day? And this is like it's a bit of a hippie word to use. It's overused, so it's difficult to define that. But let's say you want like a playful, sincere energy, which I think is really powerful to be able to access. Um, like if you really imagine that and you couple certain ideas to that and you nurture that and you start like bringing that into the world and you have I don't know like a little trigger inside of you that activates that you're just becoming that person. You can get into a certain um like flow state within that type of energy. And it's the same like a fighter that like Mike Tyson has like like being hypnotized for him was one of the reasons that he was so good, because his trainer just hypnotized him to be a total killer, which is, it's
Yeah,
kind of the
a
opposite of
monster.
what we want to do. Yeah. But like that helped him succeed as well. And so I think you can do this in any area of life. Just, you know, find a system that lets you put put all this information that like into a certain like whole state of being that you bring into the world, and then you can trust in that. You don't have to think, or well, you'll still think enough. Everybody kind of thinks enough, so it's not a problem. Um, but it'll be much calmer, and that's what I've noticed in myself, and it feels sincere. It feels honest. It's the most honest I can feel. Um, so
But
I don't know. Like I would be interested to hear your guys' perspective on that.
I think
After
that
you,
that's
Marvin.
a super interesting topic. And I was going to ask you one thing. Do you think, well, first of all, which stage are you in, the building or the shedding, the way you put it? And how do you think a man knows when it's time to make that transition? When is it time to go from building techniques, learning, to shedding and shedding and shedding and boiling it down to the essence of who you are? How do you find that transition point?
I think it's a back and forth. I think it never stops because I'm still learning a lot, and um, but when I'm in like a serious learning phase with psychology as well, like I'm not becoming like a more pleasant person necessarily because it hasn't dropped down. I'm just a cerebral scientist talking. Um, and I think like there's always gonna be challenges in your life. There's always gonna like you need to be adaptable to whatever's going on. But at the same time, when you're going out and doing whatever, and it's not like some technical job where like you need to be analytically correct. Let's say just being social. You're like you better let go. That's how I see it. You better just let go of all that stuff and trust that, you're just gonna say something and might be might be cool thing or it might not be, but it's gonna be you and everybody's gonna understand like he's okay with himself and he's being honest here. He's being sincere. Um, and I think my opinion is that when you come from that intuition, if it's well calibrated, um, it's way more powerful than having like preconceived notions of what should happen, what you should do, all that. It's like this samurai in the field just responding to what's actually happening. So does that make sense, or did I make it too vague?
Matthew, that resonates because while you and Marvin were discussing this, I remember this framework, and maybe you can help me with who came up with this, but it's a 4-step framework. It goes from unconscious incompetence, so you don't know that you're bad, to conscious incompetence, you know you're bad, awareness, which is the first step, and most guys are stuck there. They don't even know that they are bad with women, for example. And then conscious competence, you're good at what you do in samurai terms, except you have to consciously think about it. If you apply that in a practical way to dating, you have to think through what you're going to say, and this is your years of study, right? Trying different methodologies, going and demonstrating to yourself your lived experience, what that looks like, as opposed to having the concept in your brain. And then unconscious competence. You don't need to think about it to be an expert at it, which is that child state, which is you learn all the rules and then you throw them all away when you're truly a genius, but you have to do the work to get to that point, right? So let me think about that for a second. Maybe that's what it is in the context of it's a cycle. And at the end you realize that, I mean, everything is cycles, right? And your journey with women is a cycle. Yeah.
Maybe that's what
Go ahead,
wisdom
Marvin.
is, right? Like that's kind of what
Yeah.
we talk about.
Wow,
last as
okay.
well. Isn't that what wisdom is like? It's
Yeah.
the embodied knowledge of all the things, the information that you've ingested, that you've learned. You kind of you go
Right.
back to the same state, but somehow you're, to put it metaphysically, your soul knows more. In a way, like it's not analytical. It's not in the brain. It's you've experienced something, you've ingested it and integrated into your whole being, and you've somehow become more in the end, even though you're shedding all the superficial stuff and the techniques. And maybe it's something like that, you know? I can't quite put my finger on it as well, but it sounds like something like that, like what you're describing.
Right. What do you think, Matthew?
I mean, that makes sense, and it's a very similar framework, right? It kind of points in the same direction. Um, I guess in terms of being social, like I would just wonder, like, can you say hello to people and can you have like pretty basic conversation? Okay, then there's some like most people can do that. There's some competence there. So I think at that point, like even then, your best bet is just to like maybe have a few things in your mind that you want to be you want to remember. Like maybe you're somebody that
Mm.
stands way too close to people. That's I used to have that like years ago. Like people would say like you're standing, so I became conscious of
My
that.
personal space.
But you can't have like 10 different things or 20 or 5,000,
Yeah.
have a few things you want to improve on to create a better social experience for sure. I have that as well, but you cannot be overwhelmed by that. And in that sense, I think everybody has unconscious, unconscious, conscious competence to a certain extent. So
Unconscious competence.
unconscious.
Well,
Sorry.
Matthew, I would love to know when you see a beautiful woman in the street, in the coffee shop, in school, what goes through your mind? What is your thought process that results in you going and talking to that woman as opposed to letting potentially the love of your life slip on by?
Well, most of the time I have a bunch of excuses running through my mind. So
Right?
definitely,
Don't we all?
yeah. So everything you can invent, I've heard myself say. Um, and I guess like the times I meet them, it's because I just like decided, I don't know, you're it's like I think it's like what a selfish thing to do not to at least offer her your company because that's beautiful if you really like her, that's she can feel that she's gonna like and if there's something there, if she likes you, then what a selfish thing to like not pursue that. Uh, like she might be the wife of your children later on. She might be like an extremely good match for you, and you didn't go talk to her. And like, I think those things also run through my mind. Um, and those are, I don't think I'm really thinking all that in the moment. It's, it's more like intuitive, like, yeah, just, just go.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it is train of consciousness, but if you were to put it into words, what would that process kind of look like? I'm really pressing you here because you're the best that I know at talking to. If you feel the urge, you go.
yeah, I think, I think mainly it's just super simple. Maybe it's simple because I've done it quite a lot, but honestly, it felt quite simple there's complexity to it, but in essence, you're just saying hello, kind of like what's your name?
Yeah.
What are you up to today? Who are you? In a respectful way, I always say, I think I always say this, like, I'm always like, excuse me, can I interrupt you for a minute? You know, that's like, and that, I think because I do that, because I'm in the beginning, I'm very apologetic. I'm not the guy that's going to like, hey, my name's Matthew.
Hey,
This,
baby.
that. No, it's like, I want to know if I'm bothering her because, people going about their lives, you just don't want to jump in front of, like, "Hey, I'm here." You could, but I don't know. Um, and if she's okay with that, um, you then just share whatever was going on in the moment, which is usually something like, just standing there or doing whatever, and there was something about you, like might be the way she walks or just her energy, or you don't really know, but you understand she's beautiful to you. Like you just share that, and that's it, and then you just start talking, and um, that's how it goes for me. Like I don't have anything special to say. Like really, there's nothing, and I think that's very powerful not to have that, um, not to have anything special. Just but to be direct in a respectful way. And what do you talk about? I mean, who are you? Is my like that's often what I ask because I want to know. What do you want to know? That's kind of like that's your whole conversation. Like, what are you know? It can go into fantasy land quite quickly because like if she's a nurse, like you can like make jokes about that. Which kind of nurse? Like, is she
Mm,
uh, yeah, how does she
good nurse,
dress up?
bad
Like,
nurse.
you can
Yeah.
start talking about like imagining like this 1960s nurse with like short skirt, or maybe they did never existed, but so that's all playful and fun, um and if she talks about her life, like don't just ask analytical information. um like ask her what actually you really want to know, like how does she feel about like having that life, like doing those things, like and look in yourself, like how you know what's because there's always a way to relate. Like she can be completely different. You can always relate because everybody, well, not everybody, but most people have a job or do something with their lives. And so, do you like that? Have you thought about doing something else? Like, what are the struggles in that? Like, how do, who are the people there? Like, all that, and it creates an infinite amount of conversation. yeah, so
Curiosity,
yeah,
we always talk
curiosity is
about.
very powerful. Um, yeah, and it's
So I'll
fun.
take it a step further. Great response, Matthew. I'll take it a step further, and I would like to hear what you have to say, Marvin, after this, and we can wrap up after that. The idea is the more normal you are, our friend and mentor Johnny Saporno says, getting laid is effortless. It doesn't mean you don't make an action or an attempt. And this goes back to the difference between being and doing, right, Marvin? Like we talked about in the last episode. But here's how I like to conceptualize it, and tell me what you guys think. You should treat a prime Monica Bellucci the same as your everyday Starbucks girl, or a nervous girl, or a girl that you don't feel nervous around. Because it's just a woman. And so a lot of guys put women on a pedestal, so to speak. Like, wow, what a goddess, who also has bad breath and hairy armpits and has to shave and is nervous and ate onions before your date, and because everyone's figuring it out,
Monica
right?
Bellucci, she doesn't have bad breath. I don't
Oh
believe
yeah,
it.
she doesn't. She
She
doesn't
doesn't
fart.
have any hair except on her head and the eyebrows. That's it.
How do you know, man?
Yes,
How do you
and
know?
but
I don't know.
I'm jealous. And the other thing is, other guys go to the other extreme. Okay, so they start to, the terminology is neg women. They start to try to disqualify women. They try to, and a smart, intelligent, beautiful perspective, a perceptive women can see right through that. And so you're still trying and overcompensating in the other direction. And so if we talk about just be as normal as possible, like you said, right? Hey, I don't mean to bother you. My approach is slightly different, Matthew. Depends on the nighttime, daytime. Marvin, you and I have been out a lot. Matthew, you and I also went out. Excuse me. I don't mean to bother you. You're fucking beautiful. And there's like an in and out energy, right? You're not, because a lot of guys just talk in and then they stay in, right? And it's an encroachment in the space. But it's a journey to simplicity. And we just talked about getting laid is effortless, because if you're really wanting to get to know the other person, what you need to say comes up naturally. What do you want to know? You'll say, I know nothing about you, girl. Well, what do you want to know? Are you a good girl? Will you cook for me? Are you smart? Are you funny? Are you intelligent? Are you good in bed? I want to know everything. And you can say this, that's what you want to know about this girl. That is my approach. And Yathy, you described your approach, and it's more intuitive the further you go along, because you can't have a one-size-fits-all solution for all women anyways, as you come to discover, right? Pickup lines, techniques is a good starting point to get you doing more than nothing in your mother's basement.
Well,
But at some point, you develop your own style and your own inclinations.
Justin, I put it like this. That's how I put it for myself. Like, I want to be as real as possible with the girl. If she's doing something I really don't like, I'll do my best to tell her, even though I might have resistance to do that. Uh, I'm trying to find my own bullshit all the time, like because I think the main thing for this is that um I um what was my point? I forgot my point. I want her to like me for me,
Mm,
and I want to filter out the girls that are not a match. So if you know if because it might be a girl that might have a relationship with her, um, and then you've been lying about who you are in certain aspects to her.
yeah,
You know, what's the point of that? Like, how can you build something on that? Like, it's gonna come out and it's gonna, you know, like
eventually.
just gonna cause problems, and somebody's gonna get disappointed. So, and like when you're as much as yourself as you can be, I don't know if that makes sense. Uh, and she's
Very
and
much
she
so.
like and she likes that. It's great. You don't have to do anything anymore. Just be yourself, you know. So then it's
Yeah, the
effortless.
B.
But
Yes,
but what happens a lot is like you know, a- as a young guy, everybody's insecure. Like most people, most guys,
yes.
girls as well. They're also insecure. and you think you're not good enough. And so in thinking you're not good enough, like all these anxieties and all that comes up, which in some way doesn't make you good enough because it just cripples you to interact, and it makes you hide things of yourself, and and then you get a confirmation like, yeah, I'm not good enough. But it in many ways it's self-created. And so if you can be sincere, and I think if you're sincere, every time you're sincere, you're reclaiming a part of yourself. That's how I see
Well
it.
said.
You're becoming more whole. And the more whole you are, the more like that's been nurtured, and the more authentic you can bring that to a woman or anybody, Um, the more you know, like when there's a match with another person, it's real because you really showed up authentic, or it's a bit of cliche word, but I think you get what I mean. Yeah,
Yes. And that's the way you are from the start.
it's how I try to be, but I'm
Yes.
also broken like anybody, so I'm sure I'm
Yeah.
bullshitting. I do catch myself saying bullshit like everybody. So
What's your take, Marvin?
Yeah, I like what Matthew said. I was gonna build on something you said too, Justin, about the treating every girl you meet the same, even if she's like the most beautiful woman. And I think I get your point, and maybe you can clarify later. But I would add to that there's something powerful as well about showing how, like, being sincere about the connection that you actually feel with a girl that's more special to you than, because not every girl that you meet you have the same kind of, you find equally beautiful, you have the same kind of connection with,
Electricity.
and electricity,
Yeah.
right? And there is also something very powerful and sincere about speaking that into existence and saying, hey, this, there's something here that we have that's kind of unique. That's not like an everyday thing, or that's not something I experience with every other woman I meet. So I would just contrast that to what you said, but maybe you can expand on how you meant it.
But that ties in to what we talked about last time. And how you feel is probably how she feels. I'm a little nervous to talk to you. Wow, I'm shaking. I was standing over there with my friends, and wow, I'm really nervous to talk to you, but I had to do my job as a man and come talk to you because there's something about you. And I don't know what it is, and I would like to know what it is. And it's just statement, 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 truth, truth, truth. And you're right. What I think, to make a clarification and answer your question about, yes, sometimes you'll have a stronger connection with a certain woman. Sometimes we say one guy's one night stand is another guy's alabaster girl. A girl is a different girl based on each guy that she interacts with, just based on where they come from, the energy, the interaction, and maybe it's just a game of luck. But I think the most important thing is to not invent assumptions about people in general. She's too good for me. Matthew, you said it was inherently selfish to decide for the woman that you're talking to or would like to talk to, whether or not she could be interested in you. You want to at least give her the chance to get to know that, and you know you're a good guy. You know you're kind. You know you're generous. You know you would never let anything bad happen to her, to reiterate. Except she doesn't know this. And if you don't go and talk to her, you lose that forever, right?
yes, I'm jumping in. Uh, yeah, it's just such a pity if you know you're sincere, and um like something could be there that you're not, you know. Of course, like might have time constraints, and like there's still real other things, but most of the time I think there's very little excuse. Maybe maybe you're like, no, I'm like packing my chips right now. I can't. I'm doing something. Can't go. I'm
Uh-huh.
busy. Uh, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Um, yeah, there was something else I wanted to say about that, but it kind
Sure.
of slipped my mind. Um, Somebody wants to chime in.
Yeah, I have another concept. Johnny Saporno says to treat every woman like you're already sleeping with her. Because I'm going to go a bit into his philosophy, okay? A lot of women, once they've gone into a relationship with a guy, once they've married the guy, try to change him into the person that he was, pretending to be at the start of the relationship. And so, to complement what you said earlier, Matthew, if you are who you are from the start, then there's nothing to change you back to. Because if you were not pretending at the start, then that's who she met. That's the guy that she met. And if you deviate from that, then that's not who you really were. And that's why women become disappointed in men. Because they are not who they said they were at the start.
That's super powerful. Yeah, that's it.
Johnny's a genius.
Another good reason to not bullshit anybody. You know.
Yes.
Um,
But,
so
something has to be said for just the
even
mere.
even if
Yeah,
you're a
go ahead.
psychopath, even if you're a psychopath, I think it's like it's better not to manipulate people.
Explain.
Even then, it's better for yourself.
Just sorry, guys. I gotta
and
drop in a few
and for her.
minutes if you want to continue.
Okay, so let's wrap then. Let's yeah. So let's recap a bit. We covered your story, Matthew, and where you're at. You're still in psychology school. You have your good brothers that you trust with your life in town. And are you going to the conference next month?
No, I
This
have
time?
exams, so I won't be there.
Okay. Lucky. But
Unfortunately.
then you're right. Well, so this was an Amorati Spotlight for Matthew, who I met you last year, but you've been on this journey a lot longer than that. And I look at you and I see a brother in arms, a guy that gets it, a guy that I can't wait to travel the world with again. And I hope that there's a way to expedite you finishing your school and joining us for the adventure of a lifetime and going to somewhere else, not just Brazil, not just Romania, not just Argentina, Colombia. There's a whole world out there for us to see, and it's been a great pleasure talking to you, Matthew. Marvin, do you have any closing remarks?
Likewise, man. I really enjoyed this, and well, thanks for coming on, Matthew. I hope we can meet again in person soon. And yeah, let's have many more Amorati on and talk to their experiences, talk about their experiences, their lives, and include them in this journey.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks or advice for your younger self, Matthew?
I can't agree more with you guys, and I'm very happy that you started this and you invited me and hosted me. I think a closing remark would maybe be like for guys that are maybe starting out, like this is something you can learn, like anything, you can get better at this, and think about like what's more beautiful than a beautiful woman if you're a man. Like, can you make a painting that's more beautiful than that? Like, there's something to it that it's amazing. Like women are truly amazing, and if you go through this journey and you become somebody that can create magical experiences with women, or could be one girl, could be a relationship, but you're that guy, you're both gonna have memories that you'll never forget, and that's gonna be the things that you'll talk about on, or at least think about on your deathbed. So that's what drives me, and I think it's a good thing to keep in mind, and there's hope there for everybody, even at whatever level you would consider yourself at. Yeah, some thoughts there.
Beautiful. One more thing.
Awesome.
What is a question you want to leave for the next Amorati that we interview?
Oh man, gonna let me
Just
think
fire
for
away,
10
man.
minutes. This
Just
this
put you on the
podcast is going to be
spot.
2 hours. What do you think the number one thing is that men are missing today? Men in general. That's the question.
Okay, perfect. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. We would love to have you on again soon, Matthew. Enjoy your studies. And to those guys listening, we will see you guys next week. For now, this has been the Amorati podcast. See you guys soon.